After 65, one of the biggest reasons the weight won't move, the brain feels slower, and the body stays inflamed may not be where most people are looking. Curious, it may not start with calories alone, it may not start with aging alone, and it may not even start in your joints, your belly, or your brain. Pause. It may start in your gut. Now that sounds surprising because most people think of the gut as one simple thing, digestion. You eat, you digest, you move on. But that is not what the gut really is. Your gut is more like a control center. It helps regulate inflammation. It influences blood sugar. It affects hunger and fullness signals. It communicates with the immune system. And it even sends signals that may shape what happens in the brain. Surprised? So if your gut starts changing after 65, and research suggests it often does, the effects may show up in places that seem completely unrelated. Stubborn belly fat, more cravings, brain fog, slower thinking, achy joints, low energy, poor recovery, and that constant feeling that your body is somehow working against you. Thoughtful. Here's what most people never get told. After 65, you may not just be eating for your body anymore. You are also feeding the tiny organisms living inside your gut, and depending on what you feed them every day, they may either help protect your metabolism and brain, or quietly add fuel to the inflammatory fire that makes aging feel harder. That does not mean your gut controls everything, and it does not mean there is one magical food that suddenly fixes weight, memory, and inflammation overnight. But it does mean this: if you ignore the gut, you may be missing one of the deepest biological levers you still have. And the shocking fix is not a trendy supplement, it is not a detox, it is not an expensive gut test. In many cases, it is a simple daily pattern that most people overlook because it seems too ordinary to be powerful. Let me explain. Inside your gut live trillions of bacteria and other microbes. That sounds alarming at first, but many of these microbes are not enemies. In fact, some of them are more like quiet workers on your health team. They help break down parts of food your body cannot digest on its own. They help produce compounds that support the gut lining. They help train the immune system. And they help create chemical messages that influence metabolism and even the brain. Now think about that for a moment. If those microbes are helping maintain the gut lining, regulate inflammation, and shape metabolic signals, what happens when that system starts to shift in the wrong direction? That is where aging becomes important. As we get older, the gut microbiome often becomes less diverse and less resilient. Diversity matters because, in the gut, diversity usually means flexibility. It means different microbes doing different jobs. Some help ferment fiber into short-chain fatty acids, which are compounds that may help calm inflammation and support the gut barrier. Some help maintain balance in the immune system. Some may influence how efficiently we handle blood sugar and how hungry or satisfied we feel. But when that balance starts to break down, the gut lining may become weaker. Some people describe this as a leaky gut, though the more accurate term is increased intestinal permeability. That simply means the gut barrier becomes less selective, less protective. And when that happens, inflammatory signals may rise. And this is where it gets more important after 65. Because after 65, many people are already dealing with several biological pressures at once. Less muscle mass, lower activity, slower recovery, more insulin resistance, more visceral fat, that deep belly fat that is more metabolically active and more inflammatory. The body is already under pressure. So if the gut starts sending out more inflammatory signals on top of that, it can make an already difficult situation worse. Suddenly, weight gain is not just about eating too much. Now, of course, calories matter. I want to be very clear about that. But calories are not the whole story. Because your body does not respond to all calories in the same hormonal and inflammatory environment. When inflammation is high and insulin resistance is worsening, the body becomes more likely to store energy rather than burn it efficiently. Blood sugar becomes more unstable. Cravings may rise. Energy dips become more common. And many people fall into a cycle where they feel tired, they move less, they lose more muscle, and fat loss becomes even harder. So the real problem is often deeper than appetite. The gut may be helping set the stage. Some gut microbes help produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Think of butyrate as one of the gut's repair and protection compounds. It helps nourish the cells lining the colon, and it may help support a calmer immune environment. But these beneficial compounds are often produced when microbes ferment fiber, especially the kinds of fiber found in beans, lentils, oats, vegetables, berries, nuts, seeds, and other plant foods. So when the modern diet becomes low in fiber and high in ultra-processed foods, those beneficial microbes may have less of what they need. And when that happens, the gut may produce fewer of the very compounds that help keep inflammation under control. That is one of the reasons a person can be eating less and still feel metabolically stuck. But the real reason this matters goes deeper, because the gut is not only talking to your metabolism, it is also talking to your brain. This is called the gut-brain axis, and despite the complicated name, the basic idea is simple. The gut and the brain are in constant communication. They communicate through nerves, hormones, immune signals, and microbial byproducts. In other words, what is happening in your gut does not stay in your gut. If inflammatory signaling is elevated in the gut, the brain may feel the consequences. Now, I want to be responsible here. I am not saying poor gut health causes Alzheimer's disease. That would be too strong, and the research does not support that kind of certainty. But what the science increasingly suggests is that the gut microbiome may influence pathways related to brain aging, inflammation, immune activation, and perhaps cognitive decline. That matters, especially after 65, because one of the hidden drivers of aging is not dramatic inflammation that sends you to the hospital. It is chronic low-grade inflammation, a quieter, simmering process that can go on for years. And this kind of inflammation has been linked to insulin resistance, heart disease, frailty, muscle decline, and cognitive problems. So when people tell me, Dr. Becker, I feel heavier, foggier, and more inflamed than I used to, I do not hear three separate complaints. I hear one possible network problem. The gut may be involved in all three, and that is why the fix is so surprising. Because most people expect the answer to be a supplement, a probiotic, a powder, a cleanse, some expensive capsule with a dramatic promise on the label. But the strongest broad evidence does not point to one miracle product. It points to a pattern, a daily pattern that changes what your gut microbes are being fed. And this is where people often miss the opportunity because the answer sounds too simple. Here is the first piece. Feed the good microbes what they actually need. That means more fiber, but not just more fiber in the abstract. What matters even more is fiber diversity. Different plant foods feed different microbes, so if you eat the same 3 vegetables every week, that is better than nothing, but it may not give your microbiome the range of fuel it needs. After 65, think in terms of variety across the week. Beans, lentils, oats, barley, berries, apples, ground flaxseed, chia, walnuts, leafy greens, onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, broccoli, cabbage, sweet potatoes. Even cooked and cooled potatoes or rice, which contain resistant starch, a type of carbohydrate that acts more like fiber in the gut. That variety matters, not because one food is magical, but because the community in your gut responds to what you repeatedly feed it. The second piece is fermented foods, and this is where things get interesting, because fermented foods may help support microbial diversity and may help lower certain inflammatory markers. I am talking about foods like plain yogurt with live cultures, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and other traditionally fermented foods. But go slowly. If you have not been eating these foods, jumping in too fast can leave you bloated and uncomfortable. Start with a few spoonfuls of yogurt or kefir, or a small portion of sauerkraut alongside a meal, and build gradually. More is not always better, especially if your gut is sensitive. And please do not confuse fermented foods with sugary health drinks that are marketed like medicine. Read labels. Many products that sound healthy are really just sugar in disguise. Third, reduce the foods that work against the microbiome. This is the part many people do not want to hear. Ultra-processed foods may do more than add extra calories. They often displace the fiber and polyphenols that beneficial microbes thrive on. They may worsen blood sugar swings. They may contribute to overeating. And when they become the background diet, they can create a metabolic traffic jam. More cravings, more inflammation, more fat storage, less energy, and less support for the gut itself. So the goal is not perfection. The goal is replacement. Replace sugary snacks with berries and nuts. Replace refined breakfast foods with oats, yogurt, or eggs plus fruit. Replace some packaged side dishes with beans, vegetables, or lentils. Replace dessert every night with dessert some nights. Small changes, repeated consistently, may do far more than dramatic short-term restriction. But what happens next matters most. Because food is not the only thing talking to your microbiome, movement does too. Regular physical activity may support a healthier gut environment, and after 65, that benefit stacks on top of everything else movement already does. Better insulin sensitivity, better circulation, better muscle preservation, better mood, better brain function. And this is important. You do not need punishing workouts. A walk after meals may help blood sugar. Strength training a few times a week, if your doctor says it is safe, may help preserve muscle. And muscle is one of your best allies against metabolic decline. The more muscle you preserve, the better your body tends to handle glucose, energy, and recovery. Then there is sleep. Poor sleep can worsen hunger signals, blood sugar control, and inflammation. It can also affect the gut-brain axis. So if you are trying to fix your metabolism while sleeping 5 broken hours a night, you are fighting uphill. Sleep is not passive. It is repair time. It is regulation time. It is when the body resets many of the systems that help keep inflammation from spiraling upward. And then there is stress. Chronic stress changes the gut. The gut changes the stress response. That relationship goes in both directions. That is why some people feel stress in their belly almost immediately. The gut is wired into the nervous system. So calming the body with breathing, walking, sunlight, prayer, community, or a simple wind-down routine may sound unrelated to weight and inflammation, but biologically, it is not unrelated at all. Now let me give you the practical version. If you are over 65 and you want to support your gut in a way that may help your weight, memory, and inflammation, start here. First, aim to include more plant variety across the week, not just more salad. Second, add 1 fermented food in a small amount each day if you tolerate it. Third, get serious about reducing ultra-processed foods. Fourth, walk daily, especially after meals when possible. Fifth, preserve muscle with resistance exercise if you are able. Sixth, increase fiber gradually and drink enough water so your gut can adapt. And seventh, protect your sleep like it matters, because it does. Now a few cautions. If you are on warfarin, keep vitamin K intake consistent rather than suddenly loading up on leafy greens. If you have diabetes and your diet changes significantly, your blood sugar may change too, so monitoring matters. If you have IBS bloating or a sensitive stomach, increase fiber and fermented foods gradually. And if you have serious digestive disease, immune problems, or a complex medical condition, talk with your clinician before making major changes or starting supplements, because food and lifestyle can support healthier biology, but they do not replace proper medical care. And that brings me to the final point. The shocking fix is not shocking because it is exotic. It is shocking because it is foundational. Your gut may be influencing far more than your digestion. It may be shaping the inflammatory tone of your body. It may be affecting how well you handle blood sugar. It may be influencing the signals tied to appetite, metabolism, and even brain aging. So if you have been frustrated because the weight will not budge, the brain feels slower, and the body feels older than it should, do not just ask, what medication, what supplement, what trick? Ask a deeper question. What have I been feeding the system underneath all of it? Because when you start feeding the gut differently, you may begin changing the biology that has been working against you. Not overnight, not magically, but meaningfully. And after 65, meaningful is powerful. So here is what I want to ask you. Which one of these do you think your body needs most right now? More fiber diversity, fewer processed foods, fermented foods, better sleep, or more walking after meals? Let me know in the comments. And tell me your age and whether your biggest struggle right now is belly fat, brain fog, or inflammation. I read those comments closely because they help shape what I cover next. If this video helped you see your gut in a completely different way, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone over 65 who keeps saying, I'm doing everything right, so why do I still feel this way? This is Dr. Becker, and I'll see you in the next one.